Hello students, welcome to the class. In our previous class, we were discussing with the methods of preparations of haloalkenes and haloarenes. Now we'll continue with the class. We'll discuss with the properties of haloalkenes and haloarenes. As we know, the properties of the compounds can be studied under two important types. It is the physical properties and chemical properties. We'll try to focus first on the physical properties of haloalkenes and haloarenes. Then we'll learn few simple optical parameters, the definitions related to optical properties. Then we'll learn the chemical properties under haloalkenes separately and haloarenes separately. So what are the similarities in their chemical properties and what are the differences? We'll try to focus it clearly. So to start with, so we'll learn with the physical properties. First, we'll focus on the physical states of the respective substances. If we take the alkyl halides, if you take any alkyl halides in their pure form, majority of the alkyl halides, if you take in pure form, so they are colorless compounds. They do not have any color. Whereas if you take the respective bromides or iodides, if you take bromides or iodides, when they exposed to the light, they do develop the color. So this is in general the physical state with respect to the appearances of these compounds. So majority of the alkyl halides, if we take in their pure form, they are all colorless. Whereas bromides and iodides, once they expose to the atmospheric light, they develop the color. Hence, they remain color if they are exposed to atmospheric light. Then, if we take the compounds, so which are volatile in nature, so majority of all the volatile alkyl halides or aryl halides, they will have a sweet smell. If we take volatile compounds of alkyl halides or aryl halides, the volatile compounds will have always sweet smell. With this basic information regarding their physical state, so now we'll try to learn a very important physical property. It is boiling point and melting point information. Boiling point and melting point information. We'll learn first with the boiling point. We know that in general, with increase in molar mass, what happens with attractive forces? So you can recall the intermolecular forces from the states of matter. With increase in molecular mass or molar mass of the substances, the magnitude of attractive forces will always increases. So generally, with increase in molecular masses, the magnitude of attractive forces between the particles increases. As we know, if the attractive forces are more, the temperature needed for the compounds to make a volatile compound, that is to come into the vapor phase and to reach the vapor phase into atmospheric pressure to cause the boiling of the respective compound will be more. Hence, the boiling point will always increases. Hope it is clear. So try to understand clearly. With increase in molar mass, what happens? Magnitude of attractive forces increases. As a result of this, Boiling point of these compounds will always increase with increase in molar mass. Now, if you take the respective alkyl group containing bromides, iodides, chlorides, and fluorides, the various alkyl halides, so in their increasing molar masses, so the alkyl iodides with greater molar mass will always have high boiling point when compared to their bromides, when compared to their chlorides, when compared to the respective fluorides. So with the same R group, the alkyl group, the different alkyl halides, so their boiling point trend will be in this manner. Alkyl iodides will be with greater boiling point due to greater molar mass when compared to the same alkyl group containing bromide, same alkyl group containing chloride, same alkyl group containing fluorides. So if you consider the aryl halides, so the benzene ring R dash, the same trend is followed. Aryl iodides will have greater boiling point when compared to aryl bromides, when compared to aryl chlorides and aryl fluorides, that is benzene fluoride, or iodobenzene, bromobenzene, chlorobenzene, fluorobenzene. If you compare the boiling points of the respective haloarenes, iodobenzene will have a greater boiling point when compared to bromobenzene, when compared to chlorobenzene, when compared to fluorobenzene. That is, with respect to the same alkyl or aryl group containing different halogen containing compounds, if we take the halogen molar mass, easily you can consider. Other than that, so overall molar mass we need to observe to relate its boiling point. Now this is one important information with respect to boiling point. The same trend we can relate it for melting point also. That is, their iodides will have a greater melting point when compared to bromides, when compared to chlorides, when compared to fluorides. A very important thing now we'll try to consider with the organic compounds which differ in their chain lengths. So having the same molar mass, the alkyl halides, if they have same molar mass, but if they differ in the chain length, if they differ in their chain length, so we can call those respective compounds as isomeric halides, chain isomers of the compounds if we take. So having same molecular formula but differ in their chain length as a structural isomers type if we take, with increase in branching for a particular compound, if the branching points increases, so magnitude of attractive forces will always decreases. Magnitude of attractive forces between the particles decreases. As a result of decrease in magnitude of attractive force with increase in branching, their boiling points always decreases. So boiling point will decrease. For example, if we take a bromobutane, so having 4 carbon atom in a linear chain, and if that is present in the branched form, so if you compare the linear and the branched structure, the branched compound will always have low boiling point when compared to its linear isomer. The reason for this is the magnitude of the attractive force with branching will always decrease. Now to support for this, we'll take the simple example to understand. We'll observe that. Now if you observe this example, here it is with 4 carbon atoms, the linear chain, the butyl group with bromide, butyl bromide. Here it is with branching, here you can observe. It is 1 bromobutane, it is 2 bromobutane, and it is 2 methyl 2 bromopropane. So the alkyl group is with 4 carbon atom, but if we observe the halogen position, so it is a terminal position. it is at intermediate carbon, and again it is at the middle carbon. Here the chain length differs between the compounds. Now first two, if we take, so the position of the bromine is different here. So here, so if we compare the first two structure with the third structure, the chain length itself, it differs. Hence, 1 and 2 when compared with 3, they are chain isomers. Between 1 and 2, the difference as a structural isomer, it is positional isomer. Now, if we observe the boiling point of these compounds, we can observe with linear form at terminal position bromine. So 375 Kelvin is the boiling point of 1 bromobutane. Whereas 2 bromobutane, so with a little branching, so it is with boiling point 364. With the two branches, so it is 2 methyl or 2 bromo 2 methyl propane. So its boiling point is 346 Kelvin, so which is less. The low boiling point of this compound explains that with increase in branching, the boiling point will always decreases. So that is in simple regarding the boiling point of these compounds. I will try to observe. So with respect to melting points of aryl halides, so if you consider with respect to the isomeric compounds of ortho, meta and para, the melting point of para compounds will be always high because it will fit properly in its regular arrangement. It fits better in the crystal arrangement. As a result of its better fit in the arrangement of the lattice points, so the para compounds will always have high melting point when compared to ortho and meta. I will try to observe that with the simple examples. Now, if you observe the given examples here, the dihaloarenes, so it is ortho dichlorobenzene, meta dichlorobenzene, para dichlorobenzene. Now you can observe or you can notice a melting point here. The melting point of para dihalobenzene, that is dichlorobenzene, is high. So the high melting point of this explains this. The symmetry of the para compounds will better fit. The symmetry of the para compounds will better fit in the crystal arrangement or in the lattice arrangement. As a result of this, the para compounds will always have high melting point when compared to its ortho and meta position. So if you observe the boiling points, the boiling point of these compounds will not vary much. They are having almost closer boiling points, but the difference in the melting point is very important to notice here. So try to understand. So para will always have high melting point. So because of its the proper symmetry, which fits better in the regular arrangement of the crystal points or the lattice points. What are these crystal or lattice points? We learn in solid state in detail. So we can focus those points. I will try to learn the next physical property. I will observe with the density. Again, we know that with increase in molar mass, density increases. That is, density increases. Hence, so increase in the carbon chain or with increase in molar mass, so density of the respective compounds will always increases. So if we compare the densities of the compounds, so again iodides will have greater density when compared to bromides, when compared to chlorides, when compared to the respective fluorides of the similar molar mass containing alkyl group. Now we'll learn with the solubility of these compounds. So if we take the alkyl halides or aryl halides, they remain insoluble in water. They are insoluble in water. If we observe the reason for this, so the intermolecular hydrogen bonds in water, intermolecular hydrogen bonds, so which are seen in water, so they are very strong. Now, if we observe the nature of the CX bond in the case of haloalkanes or haloarenes, as though this bond is polar in nature, the energy needed to break the bonds, the energy needed to break the hydrogen bonds in water is very high. As a result of this high expenditure of breaking the intermolecular hydrogen bonds in water and to establish the new attractive force, the attractive force formed from this compounds of haloalkanes or haloarenes will releases less energy. As a result of this, they remain insoluble in water and they are soluble in organic solvents. They are soluble in organic solvents. The main reason why they remain insoluble in water is that as though they are polar in nature, the energy needed for the alkyl halides once they added in water to break the intermolecular hydrogen bonds, which are very strong in nature. So it requires a high expenditure of energy, and these alkyl halides, once they form the new attractive forces with water, they releases very less energy. As a result of this, the formation of attractive force is very difficult. As a result, they remain insoluble in water and they are soluble in organic solvents. With this, we have completed the simple physical properties of haloalkanes and haloarenes. Now we'll continue with the optical parameters. Few simple optical terms we'll try to learn. So to support for the stereochemical aspects, so regarding the understanding of chemical properties, then we'll go for the chemical properties of haloalkanes in detail. Now we'll learn with few simple stereochemical aspects. So first we'll try to learn, so what is a plane of polarized light? So which is very important in understanding the optical parameters. So hence we'll try to learn first what is a plane of polarized light. Now if you take the source of ordinary light, any ordinary light, if we take, the light waves are oscillating in all the possible planes. If we take any ordinary light source, the light waves are oscillating in all the possible planes. So such ordinary light, if you pass through a Nicol prism, we are going to get the light waves, so which are traveling in one particular plane. Such a light, so which consists of the waves, light waves, so oscillating or propagating in one particular plane, is called as plane of polarized light. Which is used to identify the respective dextro or levorotatory nature of the compounds in solution. So with the instrument called polarimeter. So polarimeter is used to measure the property of rotating this plane polarized light by a compound present in its solution. I will recall again. So what is plane polarized light if it is considered? So the ordinary light will consist of waves, the light waves traveling in all the possible planes, which when passed through a Nicol prism, so the waves will travel in one particular plane. Such a light consists of light waves traveling in one particular direction. They are called as plane polarized light. Now, based on the plane polarized light, so we need to understand the second property, which is a interlinking concept. So we need to know what is optical activity. Now, if we take any compound in its solution form, So we'll take the alkyl halides now. The alkyl halide containing compound in a suitable solution. And to such a organic compound containing solution, if we pass the plane polarized light, if we pass the plane polarized light through a compound containing solution, so the ability of the solution to rotate the plane polarized light either towards right hand side or left hand side. So either towards the right hand side or towards the left hand side. So the ability of this particular rotation by a compound in its solution is called as optical rotation, so which is measured as optical activity. So you can observe just to show the simple representation. So I'm writing like this so I can understand. So by passing the plane polarized light, if the solution of the compound has the ability to rotate this plane polarized light either towards right hand side or towards left hand side, so we can call the respective activity as optical activity, and the compounds are said to be optically active compounds. All the compounds will not show this optical activity. There are the conditions which are required to satisfy to exhibit this optical activity, which is very important in learning, that we'll try to learn. So those compounds which will rotate the plane polarized light towards the right hand side, so they are called as dextro-rotatory compounds. It is dextro-rotatory compounds. So to indicate that, so the symbol used is D followed by hyphen, so with the name of the compound, so indicates it is a dextrorotatory compound, or it is indicated by the symbol plus. So before the name of the compound, if the symbol D is there or plus is there, it indicates that the organic compound will rotate the plane polarized light towards the right hand side. Similarly, so if it rotates towards the left hand side, so then it is called as levorotatory compounds. Levorotatory compounds, so which are represented by the symbol small letter L followed by hyphen continued with the name of the compound, or negative symbol to indicate it rotates towards the left hand side. So like this, based on the nature of the compounds in their solution, to rotate the plane polarized light either towards the right hand side or towards the left hand side, the compounds are classified into dextrorotatory compounds and levorotatory compounds. So this particular optical activity, the ability to rotate the plane polarized light, so is very important. To satisfy this, the conditions are to exhibit the optical activity. The compound should be a chiral compound. It should be a chiral compound. Now, what is chiral compound if we take? So with respect to organic compound, we'll try to discuss. A carbon which is bonded to, will take halogen containing compound here. Some different groups, A, B, C, D, will try to consider A, B, C. Now, along with halogen, if the surrounding groups are also different groups, so then this carbon is indicated with an asterisk symbol. So that indicates it is an asymmetric carbon or chiral carbon. It is asymmetric or chiral carbon. What is the meaning of asymmetric or chiral carbon is that a carbon which is bonded to different atoms or different groups of atoms. Bonded to different atoms or groups of atoms. So if it is bonded to different atoms or different groups of atoms, such a carbon is called as chiral carbon, and such compounds are said to be chiral compounds. So if the organic compound is containing this chiral nature, and the second condition, plane of symmetry. The compound should not have plane of symmetry. So then only the compound will show this optical activity. So it should not have the plane of symmetry, and the compound should have a chiral carbon in it. So if it satisfies these two conditions, then the compound in its solution will rotate the plane polarized light towards right hand side and said to be dextrorotatory compound, towards left hand side and it is said to be levorotatory compounds. Now to support this, we'll try to continue with simple information. Try to observe. Now you can observe from the given diagram. So to understand what is the chiral carbon, or to indicate the chiral nature, simple pictures are given. It's not with respect to organic compounds. Some representations are given to understand what is the chiral or achiral. Now, if we observe the palms, our two hand palms, it looks like same. Similarly, if we observe our foot, so it will looks like same. Our right and left hands, or the right and left foot, if we observe, both will looks almost similar. But if you superimpose on one another, you cannot expect the same impression is there on uh, there with respect to other. That means, so they look as it is or same, but once they superimpose on one another, you cannot see them as superimposed exactly. So such images are called as non-superimposable mirror images. That means it looks like same, but once if you superimpose on one another, they will not have the same impression. So that means you can easily observe your hands, two hands. So whatever the lines, if you see in your palm, in your left hand, will not look like same in your right hand. So if you just observe, it looks like same, but keen observation will show that they are non-superimposable mirror images. Whereas in the right hand side, if you observe in this picture, so a spherical shaped two balls, if you superimpose on one another, the images of that, they exactly superimpose. So this kind of images, or the objects, are called as non-chiral objects. Looks like same, but they do not non-superimposable. They are called as, on their mirror images, they are called as chiral objects. Now this particular optical property, so where the compounds, if we observe, if the compounds, so what are these compounds? It should be optically active compounds. Optically active compound. The optically active compounds, so which are non-superimposable on their mirror images are called as chiral compounds. And so whatever this property shown by the chiral compounds is measured to as chirality. Now what is chirality refers to? It is the property by which, so the pair of the compounds which are optically active compounds, which are non-superimposable on their mirror images, so are said to be chiral. And the property is called as chirality. Now the same is also called as molecular asymmetry. Asymmetric carbon or chiral carbon refers to the same, the carbon which is bonded to four different atoms or groups of atoms. So such a asymmetric carbon containing compounds will show this optical rotation. So it is also represented by one more optical term called as enantiomers. Enantiomers will have the same meaning. So enantiomers are optically active compounds which are non-superimposable on the mirror images. So you can use the same definition for this also. It's not required to repeat it here. So just you can recall the information. So chirality or enantiomers refers to same. So these are the pair of the compounds which are having non-superimposable on the mirror images. So with respect to organic compound, if we take, if it is plus 2-bromo-butane and minus 2-bromo-butane. That means one is a dextrorotatory compound and another one is levorotatory compound. Now these two are said to be enantiomers because the pair of these two compounds, if we take, they looks like same, but they will not have a non-superimposable on the mirror images. Hence they are said to be enantiomers. So these enantiomers we need to understand clearly when we are learning the stereochemical aspects in the reaction point of view. To summarize, so we need to recall what is a plane of polarized light, what is optical activity, what is a chiral compound, so what is asymmetric carbon. So by understanding that, what is chirality and what are enantiomers. So to repeat the concept, plane of polarized light, the ordinary light contains waves oscillating in all the possible directions. If such a light is passed through a Nicol prism, so we are going to see that the light waves are oscillating in one particular direction. Such a light is called as plane polarized light. So when a compound in its solution will rotate its plane polarized light either towards right hand side or towards the left hand side, then we'll call such substances are optically active compounds, so which are having dextrorotatory type and levorotatory type, and the respective rotation is also called as dextrorotation, levorotation. Now to exhibit this, there are two important conditions to be satisfied by the compounds. One is it should be a chiral compound and it should not have plane of symmetry. So by observing this, so we can recall, so plane of symmetry to relate, I have taken the next important image that you can observe. So what is that to understand? So if the compounds looks like same, but on their mirror images they are non-superimposable, then they are chiral. If they look like same and on their mirror images, if they are superimposable, then they are non-chiral. Non-chiral is also called as symmetric. Chiral is asymmetric. Chiral, asymmetric. Non-chiral, it is symmetric. So this plane of symmetry should not be there for a compound to exhibit optical isomerism. To show optical isomerism, it should be chiral, that is non-superimposable on the mirror images. Such a property is measured by chirality. That is, a pair of compounds which are optically active compounds which are non-superimposable on their mirror images are called as chiral compounds, and the property is called as chirality. It is also called as enantiomers. So with this, we have seen few simple optical parameter terms which are necessary for us to understand the next concept. Hope this information is clear, so you can understand this in more better way by learning with few more simple aspects. Now to conclude, so we'll learn the last aspect with respect to stereochemical concepts. It is what is racemization, retention and inversion. With respect to configuration, we'll try to learn. Now we'll conclude a few important terms, that is inversion, retention and racemization. To understand this, so try to observe this. So it is a three-dimensional representation which is given here. So we know that it is with respect to asymmetric carbon C. So you can observe all. So they are all asymmetric, that is chiral. So but it is used in three-dimensional representation. Now we know that in the three-dimensional representation of a compound, we are going to use a simple line, a solid wedge, and dashed wedge just to represent the compound in three-dimensional view. So these particular simple lines indicates the bonds in plane. So this represent bond towards the observer. It is towards observer. So this representation indicates bonds which are away from the observer. So just to recall these points I have mentioned here. So this we learned in detail with how to represent the organic compounds. So now here the center dot indicates the carbon, chiral carbon, which they have not shown. So this point indicates the chiral carbon. And these simple lines indicates it is on the plane, dashed wedge away from us, that is towards observer, away from observer, and this solid wedge indicates it is towards observer. Now, if you observe this middle structure, try to carefully observe the information. If you take this, now we are going to replace the X, the halogen, by a compound replacement group Y. Now, if you observe this Y replaced structure A in the first case now, you observe this as the first structure. Just to differentiate, I will take in another color. Just observe this. Now, if you observe this first one, the replacement of X by Y leading to a structure A, the bond of C2H5 is same, that is on the same plane. Instead of X, the Y is on the plane now. H, again away from the observer. CH3 bond is towards the observer. So that means all the bonds are maintained in same state. That is, in their same configuration, it is maintained. Hence, in a given chemical reaction, if you observe this, so this is a chemical reaction where Y substitutes the position of X to lead a structure A or a compound A. Now, if you observe in the formation of A substitution reaction, the halogen is substituted by an atom Y or a group Y. The configuration of the product is same as that of the reactant. The reactant configuration and the product configuration, if you observe, so they are same. So their configuration is retained as same. Such a conversion or a chemical change in which the product is having same configuration as that of the reactant is called as retention. That is the first one. So this is a retention of configuration. Now, what is retention? So if a product has the same configuration as that of the reactant, so then it is called as retention. Now you can observe with the second one. Just to differentiate, I will select another color. Now you can observe this second one. So again, the replacement of X is done with a group or an atom Y. Now if you notice this second change here, whatever this configuration which is maintained as same in the conversion of A, if you can notice in the conversion of B, so this is almost tilted 180 degrees towards left. It's almost inverted. So you can observe this. Those groups on right hand side here, so are present on left hand side. And hence, in the second case, the conversion reaction where substitution of Y takes place with the already present group X to yield the product B. So it proceeds with inversion of configuration. That is, product obtained is inverted when compared with the reactant configuration. Then such a chemical reaction is called as inversion of configuration. So that is what the second structure B in the conversion accounts for. Now, a special case we'll try to observe now, the third case. Now, if you observe this, the third case, so A plus B together it is given. Now we'll try to understand that as, so if both A and B are obtained in 50-50%, that is 50% of A is obtained and 50% of B is obtained in the respective conversion. That is a chemical reaction which proceeds with both retention of configuration as well as inversion of configuration. So then this is said to be the racemic mixture. So it is called as a racemic mixture, which is equimolar mixture of both the retented and inversion configuration of the compounds, or in terms of dextro levo, you can indicate equimolar mixture of dextro and levo compound is called as racemic mixture. And obtaining this 50% of retention and inversion is called as racemization. So obtaining a 50-50% mixture of the dextro and levo rotatory compounds or retention inversion configuration compounds is called as racemization, which is a very important one to understand the substitution nucleophilic mechanisms. Both in SN2 and SN1, we need to relate these optical parameter terms and we need to relate the stereochemical aspects. And so try to remember. Just to conclude, I will repeat again so you can carefully observe. So in a given chemical conversion, if you take in a given chemical conversion, so whatever the product configuration obtained, if it is same as the reactant, then it is called as retention. Then it is called as retention. So if the configuration of the product obtained is inverted when compared to the reactant configuration, then it is called as inversion. If equimolar mixture of both inversion and retention of configuration is seen, then it is called as racemization or racemic mixture.